There's a bow wave coming here with the amount of defense funding and the FY26 budget and what's being proposed in FY27 that'll add a new dimension alongside those other sectors of aerospace and automotive. Now we're going to see a re-emphasis in defense in the next couple of years.
Hi, I'm Steve Plum, Editor-in-Chief of SME Media here at RAPID TCT in Boston with Brett Connor, Chief Manufacturing Officer for SME. Thanks for joining us, Brett.
Thanks for having me here, Steve.
So we have three showcases this year, Aerodef, the Healthcare Showcase, and the Startup Showcase. Real big this year on the Aerodef side, we had a Brigadier General Bain with us, and a lot of great exhibitors. How much cross-pollination between industries is there on the additive side, and transfer of technology?
Yeah, so there actually is a fair bit of cross-pollination across industries. And so, one of the things about RAPID is the opportunity to see what's going on in other industry sectors, but also to gain depth in your own sector as well. In the conference, for example, we do have tracks that are by sectors, but we also have things like Essential AM as well. So on the floor, you'll see some companies that are focused on a particular sector, others whose products are able to be leveraged across sectors. And so they will have, parts, for example, from various sectors in their display area. So you do get a pulse of the overall additive manufacturing industry and also a sense as to how it's being leveraged by different organizations. And it's certainly true when you walk the floor here, you get to talk to people who are involved in automotive racing, you get to talk to people who are doing qualification and certification for defense programs. It kind of runs the whole gamut here, but you get the opportunity to see all the different technologies, hardware or software, that could be used in your particular industry.
So one of the keys at a few of the sessions that I sat in were talking about scalability and how to take it from some of the initial applications and really drive up volumes and mainstream applications. What have you seen, and how is it advancing in that direction?
Right, and I think if RAPID plus TCT, this event's been around for 36 years. Mm-hmm. So you imagine in the early days, it's predominantly prototyping with a vision of the future, and expanded into getting into tooling and fixtures and jigs and manufacturing, and then production, kind of finding little areas that can work on. And then now we are seeing production ready solutions being delivered at scale. And I think that's a great maturing of the industry, to see the approach looking at scale too. And one of the things that I tried to convey in some of my presentations that were more around defense is that there's a bow wave coming here with the amount of defense funding and the FY26 budget and what's being proposed in FY27 that'll add a new dimension alongside those other sectors of aerospace and automotive and industry, where the technology has moved into production in various ways, shapes, or forms. Now we're going to see a re-emphasis in defense in the next couple of years.
And one thing that struck me when I first started coming to the show 4 years ago was meeting some companies that were specifically additive related and had gotten their start in additive, whether it was the printer companies or material companies, but just how many traditional manufacturers that are embracing additive, both from a tech side or from a user side.
Right.
And you have terms like hybrid manufacturing, where it's a combination of additive and traditional manufacturing. And especially as some new technologies emerge, such as AI, how important is it to kind of have that integrated approach and everybody work together?
Yeah, so first of all, integration from the standpoint of collaboration is exceptionally important, especially as we now go through this new phase, not just of scale up, but also getting into the digital aspects of manufacturing. AI is going to be a forcing function for that. I think it'll be an accelerator in many ways. And the interesting thing is how AI is going to engage with additive manufacturing in multiple ways. In some ways, and it's already starting to happen, working with customer service, working on the business operation side of the organization, but we're starting to see it more and more on the operation side with the machines in process and to a certain extent post-process inspection as well. And that's where where the collaboration piece becomes very important for us to be able to learn from each other, as validation is going to become critical. Something I like to say is you can't hallucinate your way to qualification and certification. At the end of the day, we're making physical items. Those items still have to meet product definition. I think AI can get us there. I think we can get the process pass and process parameters more quickly. I think we can get to closed loop control, which would help improve yields, help improve quality assurance. I think we can even get to faster development of material properties, but it has to be validated. And I think we can do this working together as a community. That's why events like this are so important.
Yeah, it did seem like there was more optimism this year in terms of making progress on the streamlining certification and requirements and testing, especially in the defense sector where that can really take a lot of time.
Yeah, and I think defense and aerospace, of course, healthcare, which we have a great healthcare showcase here, and again, an area where there has been scale. But that there, in all of those areas, there's a high degree of criticality and therefore certification that's involved. I think that there are efforts that are bearing fruit for qualification in the defense world. There's joint additive qualification for sustainment, or the JAX program, that's really trying to work with additive manufacturing companies, talk about like contract manufacturers and so forth, to an increased level and a more common level of qualification performance that'll allow them to be a dependable source of supply for the Department of Defense. The other thing that it needs to be matched with is demand. Having the demand signal in defense materialize in demand, seeing what has happened in FY26 from an appropriation standpoint means that demand is going to materialize. And regardless of the sector, there is a cultural issue that is needed for qualification and certification. And as we see scale and as we see more adoption and production, we're starting to see that barrier resistance to certification come down because of the experience that is happening, in-use experience. One thing that got brought up here that I do want to point out as a great example of being qualified, certified, put in a very visible and critical application is Artemis II. I mean, over 100 additive manufacturing parts on that vehicle. Very inspiring flight. First time we've had astronauts around the moon since 1972. Longest human space flight so far. And again, it happened because of additive manufacturing.
That's definitely a great success story, and something that really has legs to further the cause. You mentioned community earlier, which has always been very strong in the additive world. We saw some of that at the gala 2 nights ago. Well, a lot of the award winners, I've had the pleasure of interviewing a few of them. Especially the high school kids, the college kids that are so enthusiastic about it. And community is what SME is all about, bringing companies together. How can SME further that cause in terms of additive?
So, we have the advantage of SME of being able to cast a wide net from a community standpoint. We don't really have boundaries to a certain extent when it comes to that. And a lot of things can be very local in nature. I mean, here we are in New England. New England has great depth in healthcare, in defense, so forth. Every locality is going to have a little different emphasis on what's required. So, a key aspect is workforce. And I think SME has a strong capability to develop and help AM as an industry, those other manufacturing sectors, and states, localities, regions to build a workforce pipeline tailored to the needs of that industry, right? To match the demand to the supply with the right knowledge set that's required. So for additive manufacturing, bringing together the knowledge sets and tooling you, bringing together the certifications that we have in additive manufacturing, along with the things that go around additive manufacturing, from design to post-processing and so forth, and being able to do that at scale, and having the ability to reach into middle school, for example, and set the expectations and the realizations of what manufacturing is about. Changing perceptions there, changing perceptions with parents and grandparents, but being able to have knowledge sets at the middle school level, what we're doing at SME Prime at the high school level, what we're doing with the manufacturing imperative workforce challenge at the community college level, how we're working with the universities through a variety of activities, including ABET accreditation, and research work with NAMRI and NAMRAC. We've got pretty much an entire pipeline around talent combined with technology, and it's applicable to AM and all the supporting things that go around AM to make it successful.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier hybrid manufacturing. A lot of times that is, and we can get into the broader convergent manufacturing too as well. But a lot of times hybrid manufacturing is realized as a combination of additive and subtractive, which requires knowledge sets in both, and really competencies and competency-based development. We can add in more capabilities in convergent manufacturing, which can include robotics too as well. And I think that's actually a strength of SME, is that we don't have a particular boundary from a process standpoint. We can bring together additive, robotics, subtractive from a workforce development standpoint. I think you can see depth here on our show floor that yes, there are the people who have 3D printing equipment and materials and software for that, but there's also post-processing capabilities as well, digital manufacturing, and all sorts of ERP, MES tools and so forth right here that you can walk through the show floor and see and meet with the vendors and look and see whether that's right for your company.
Yeah, it's definitely a multi-pronged approach, and you can see it in the students, how enthusiastic they are, but also in longtime employees that want to learn the technology and upskill.
Yeah, it's great to be able to see things like Bright Minds where students could be brought in here. Really fun yesterday was the America Makes Added and Steel Challenge, bringing in the teams of students with making a multi-tool and having to demonstrate in real time the performance of their multi-tool. And it was great to be able to hear the students all cheering as they were able to complete this, and who jumps up and has the best time and so forth on the on the list. It was fun to see that. It's just enthusiastic. I'll tell you the other thing that was really exciting was the AM Gala. I had the opportunity to present the Digital Manufacturing Challenge Awards. Those awards are given to 3 categories: high school students, undergraduate, and graduate. And to be able to present those awards and really fascinating projects as part of the challenge, but be able to meet those students and just see their enthusiasm for manufacturing, particularly additive manufacturing, is exceptionally gratifying. That's really part and core to our mission as SME, is to inspire the next generation and catalyze and accelerate the current generation to grow the manufacturing sector.
Yeah, the range of the projects from nuclear reactors to cicada-inspired design, and it was amazing.
Absolutely.
Well, Brett, thanks for joining us, and we'll look forward to next year's RAPID
That's right.
TCT in Detroit.
Next year in Detroit.
All
See you there. Thanks, Steve.
All right, thanks.